Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson where we talk about the art and impact of Vincent van Gogh.
That makes sense. You have to understand the person behind the thought pattern to help them break the thought pattern.
This is also one of the more annoying levels because you can't use your fast. It's a levitation ball and you can run on it and you go faster. And you can't use that because you're already big enough. And you might break the game a little bit. And also that level goes really, it can occasionally have some slowdown issues, depending on the version that you're playing.
Yeah, this actually managed to kill a Radeon 5070 card, so I agree.
It was ambitious, but it had some issues. It's especially bad later in the level when there's lots and lots of particle effects everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's lots and lots of things to process.
Yes, exactly. There's also a stage actress star, which I'm always a fan of, but is not my favorite level.
Because of the drama or because it's annoying?
The level's a little bit annoying, and there's nothing breathtaking about it on first glance. Gloria's theater is interesting because Gloria is sort of interesting. She was sort of abandoned, according to her own recollection, which may or may not be a little bit faulty. She was more or less abandoned by her mother, who wanted to be a star at, quote, Hagatha's Home for Girls, which was basically a wilderness camp, but for acting.
Method acting, I guess?
I don't know.
That's an interesting combination. Wilderness camp meets acting camp.
Well, it's more of a boarding school, but I was talking about how they treat the students.
Still an interesting combination.
Yes. So when she finally leaves this boarding school, she becomes this really big star, and how sensitive do I have to be with this?
Don't worry.
Her mother, potentially jealous of her success, jumps off a building and dies.
That's a special kind of trauma.
This is triggered because Gloria seems to have some kind of either bipolar or manic depressive illness going on. Of course, we never actually get any diagnosis for any character in-game or from the creators. That's kind of an interesting story, though. So, according to Tim Schafer, who is the head of Double Fine Productions, he used to be part of LucasArts, and he did stuff like Secret of Monkey Island and some of the old point-and-click adventures for that company. During the production of Full Throttle, they were going to have a peyote dream sequence, and he sort of kept that in the back of his head because they weren't able to program it at the time. I believe the story goes he was out with friends, and one of them said something kind of off the wall, and one of the other ones looked at him and went, "What is the color of the sky in your world?" And that, stuck and sort of melded with this peyote dream sequence, journey to the center of the mind idea that he had originally had for Full Throttle, and eventually became Psychonauts.
Neat.
That's neat. I always love hearing how weird ideas came about.
That's what the 20th anniversary series on how they made Psychonauts that came out in the lead up to Psychonauts 2 coming out is titled The Color of the Sky in Your World, a Psychonauts retrospective.
That's fascinating.
Also, the meat circus sucks, which is the coldest take to ever exist. But the meat circus it sucks.
It just sounds bad. But speaking of Psychonauts 2, is there anything from that game you want to talk about? Art style-wise or lore-wise, or?
I don't like the art style as much in Psychonauts 2 as I like it in Psychonauts. There's something about the blocky, low poly era of the first Psychonauts that I don't think necessarily translated to the higher def Psychonauts 2. it also doesn't help that a lot of the NPC that Psychonauts the first was a very limited character game. You had the like handful of campers, you had the like 3 or 4 counselors, and then like the 5 inmates, and that was basically it. Inmates, asylum patients. And that was basically it. So you could get really detailed designs for every single one of those characters. However, Psychonauts 2 had like random NPCs, random Psychonauts that just sort of wandered around. And instead of having any kind of interesting, unique design, they all just kind of looked like Muppets, which is a little disappointing on the art style side, because some of what makes Psychonauts the first so endearing is the art style, the quirkiness of all the characters, and none of their eyes are exactly like lined up really. Half the characters don't look like they belong in the same universe. Some of them are blue, purple, or whatever, and they're still blue or purple, but they're just background Muppet characters. It's very strange. Like, I get it, like they had to have these NPCs wandering around, so they couldn't give them all like intricate designs. Like, that's duh. But
yeah, and also having a different game engine is going to change the quality and style of the graphics versus the older, more charming style.
Yeah, plus a 20-year increase in graphical fidelity and all of that definitely makes a difference. And I said I grew up in a Nintendo household. I grew up in an N64 household, so I have a very deep fondness for low poly, blocky, nonsense graphics in video games, obviously. So it also, I guess part of it's kind of nostalgia, but I also think the art style works better when it's not as high def.
Yeah, I think some styles do work better in low def versus high def.
It's like when you try and remake games that were originally programmed on a CRT, and it kind of looks weird because they're like lines, which originally accounted for the fuzziness of a CRT TV to make the graphic kind of fill out and look how it's supposed to. But then when you try and port that into a modern television or system or whatever, then the lines are there and they're spaced out and it doesn't look as good.
Yeah, because the things that they had to add to the design to compensate for the visual quality are no longer needed to compensate for the visual quality. Thus, they are altering the visual quality in a way that is not positive.
Yes, a little bit. Yep.
And there's not really a way you can turn that off without going all the way back into like the core programming stuff, which I'm like, I ain't touching that.
There is also a weird section of Psychonauts 2 that intrinsically reminds me of Gravity Falls. And don't get me wrong, I love Gravity Falls, but yeah, that's a different world, and I'm playing as Raz. I don't want to be reminded of Dipper and Mabel right now. Then again, Raz's voice. Oh, I've forgotten his name. Oh no. Oh, I had it just a second ago.
I believe Richard Stephen Horvitz.
Richard Horvitz, yes. Who is the voice of everyone's childhood if you grew up watching Nickelodeon. He was like everybody in Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. He was, oh my god, he's like so many voices. And most recently, of course, Moxie from Hell of a Boss. He was in Vader Zim also.
Nice. I feel like one of these days we need to do a dive into the art style and stuff for Hell of a Boss and
Tumblr. That's the art style. It's Tumblr.
Good point.
Yeah. I have to admit that is the most.
I got you.
Yes, well played. If I was wearing a hat, I would tip it to you, but I will just go with congratulations. You stunned me. Because, wow.
It's not that hard. I do it every recording.
Fair enough, but still, yeah. That's now blazed in my memory.
Oh, here's a fun thing from Psychonauts 2. In Psychonauts 2, you get a power to, create a little mini clone of yourself. And because Raz is voiced by Invader Zim, they got the voice of Gogh to voice the little clone.
Oh, that's adorable.
I feel I need to pick that game up now just on this. I played through the first to do this critique, but now I need to pick up the second.
Also, Jack Black has a full psychedelic rock song sequence just in the middle of this video game.
Alright, now I'm getting Alan Wake 2 vibes.
I'm convinced that man has a clause in every contract that he has to sing a song.
I would not be surprised. And I'm totally fine with that.
In terms of terrible demands, that's pretty good.
He's one of the people that can absolutely get away with it.
You have to give him his sequence, his singing sequence. I mean, if you're gonna cast Jack Black.
I mean, isn't that part of why you do it?
Anyway, the song is really good. If you haven't heard it, you should look it up.
It will be after the show, actually, because now I'm curious.
So do you have any final parting thoughts on the art of Psychonauts before I go into the blurb thing for the environment and character analysis, which you can also toss in some thoughts afterwards too?
There's nothing else really like it. And this is both a positive and negative, because while it is fondly remembered by its fans, it was not very commercially successful at first. Partially because the art style, and partially because people were moving away from collectathon platformers at the time. There's nothing else, I think, quite like it in terms of art style, in terms of this particular type of story, especially in Psychonauts 2, which is a lot more modern, because it came out in 21-ish?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. It's a lot more cognizant of mental illness, which is something that I find incredibly mature on the part of the creators, is that they were able to continue their ideas but also grow and change with changing understanding of mental health and of societal norms about mental health. And even the first game is kind of a trailblazer, because it never really demonizes any of the patients who do have some somewhat severe mental illnesses. Raz occasionally gets annoyed at them, but neither he nor any of the others ever really demonize them in any way.
That's pretty big considering how often...
2005?
2005.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I'd say,
Yeah.
early 2000s.
When the R word was still going strong in the public vernacular.
Yeah, and I mean, we have come a long way since then, but even today there are still some stigmas and some things that are like, things just need to be handled better. We need to continue having better ways to support people with mental health issues, and also supporting the arts and art initiatives, because that can help a lot. Art therapy is very helpful.
As long as it's not being run by a dentist.
Yes, as long as it's not being run by a dentist who secretly is plotting to take over the world and whose name is short for lobotomy.
Yeah, I'd say a healthy fear of dentists in general is a good idea at this point.
No. Dental health is important.
Fair point.
Dental health is important. Do not bite your dentists.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Any dentist / additional profession at the same time is frightening.
There we go.
A dentist doing stuff that's not dental work. Got it.
Don't trust your dentist with your neurosurgery.
Yes. Do not do that unless they've also practiced and gotten a degree in neuroscience.
That's a lot of school.
That's so much school.
It's so much school.
So much debt.
Ugh.
At that point, I couldn't actually fault the neuroscientist dentist for going supervillain.
I feel like we've lost the plot a smidge.
Just a little bit. Also, I feel like I don't see how being upset about all the debt that you're in for your medical degrees
makes it acceptable to steal children's brains?
Yeah, fair point. I would believe that as a dentist.
Here's the thing that might make it worse. He makes them sneeze them out.
As somebody who has drank s'mores tea and has sneezed at the same time, I kind of feel their pain. And yes, it had little floating marshmallows.
Oof. Yeah, thankfully I've never had that happen, but I have had some pretty big sneezes, so I do appreciate whoever on the team decided to play literally off of the sneezing your brains out.
Yeah. Well, you've got that achoo also. You get that thing where you sneeze in the light, too. So you sneeze a lot.
Yeah, I've got it's either called photic reflex syndrome or another longer name that spells achoo. Bright light makes me sneeze.
Bright light just makes me run for cover.
Yeah, I've heard the distant sound of sizzling when you walk outside.
It only happened 6 or 7 times.
All right, our dear vampire friend. Shall we wrap this episode up?
Yes, let's wrap this up before all of the squirrels in our brains escape.
And try and take our jobs.
I can have my job as long as I get paid. These distinctive brushwork and color techniques are clearly evident in the visual design of Psychonauts. Each mental world you explore in the game has a texture that feels painted rather than computer generated, or sometimes a little bit of both depending on which game you're in. The landscapes have a thick tactile quality that echoes Van Gogh's impasto technique. For example, in the Milkman conspiracy level, the suburban houses seem to be constructed out of broad, general brushstrokes. The streets and sidewalks have a painted, textured look rather than the flat colors of typical game environments. This creates a sense that the whole world is a malleable construct of the mind, which it is, just as Van Gogh's paintings seem to be direct expressions of his psychological state.
The game's color palette is also distinctly Van Gogh inspired. Casey, of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the emulator and some of the quick screenshots I had found, it does utilize a lot of bold contemporary colors, which are used to create these environments that have a very emotional connection, such as the Black Velvetopia level, the vivid oranges and blues, directly kind of reference the color contrast choices taken within the Starry Night to elicit the same visual response. And then, again, bringing up the meat level, one of the things I noticed when I was checking out that one, the very saturated reds and greens create this kind of manic, sickening intensity, like everything's kind of, vibrating. That would mirror Van Gogh's use of color to kind of bring up the same emotional extremes. And then, not counting too, because, I do see what you say, Casey, about even the design has kind of changed. Well, the characters in the first game definitely feel more like Van Gogh's expressive approach to characters. As you pointed out, the designs are all exaggerated with almost characterist features that express their psychological essence. So, like with example, Boyd almost nondescript form he takes, while Tegley looks like a brick wall. The way they move and kind of gesture is reminiscent of that swirling dynamic figure choices that are often embodied within Van Gogh's paintings.
Now part of me is wondering what it would look like if Psychonauts had part of the story where you go into Van Gogh's mind.
I feel if it didn't start at the Starry Night, it would be a disappointment, and there needed to be at least a few sunflowers.
For sure. That would be fascinating to see, considering we've talked about his struggles with mental health and the fact that a lot of his paintings were him trying to show other people how he sees the world and how he viewed a lot of those as failures, because Starry Night didn't, in his mind, communicate what he was trying to show, but still his most well-known. Everyone knows Starry Night. So what was the inside of his mind look like? And how would you escape? I feel like that second question is the biggest one.
I feel that this is one of those "you're limited to win is not to play" moments of, nope. If getting to the root of the problem is going through Van Gogh's head, nope.
I don't know. I do it. That sounds fun. So quick final thoughts. Anything else you want to shout out, Casey?
Man, speaking of sneezes, almost just sneezed. That's all I got.
All right. We will call it there then.
Thanks for coming out, Casey.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks for listening to An Unexpected Art Lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. This week, continuing to focus on the art and impact of Vincent van Gogh. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.